All right, welcome everyone to the Chicago Football Connection podcast. I am your host, Steve Letizia. You can follow me on Twitter at CFC I'm joined by my co-host, as usual, Luke O'Grady. Follow him at Luke O'Grady. And we're joined again by another guest, Jacob Infante from Windy City Gridiron, lead draft analyst there. You can follow him on Twitter at Jacob Infante24. Jacob, thanks so much for coming on. Really excited to talk about the Combine with you, NFL draft in general. You know, you're one of the best Bears draft guys out there, just guys in general. So really excited to have you on to talk football, Bears, draft, all that stuff. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. And I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been, especially with the season ending now.
Yeah, it's officially draft season.
Yeah, it's officially draft season. And, we've been really kicking it into gear here. My preparations have been, going on since the summer, but now is the time that, I'm truly able to maximize my audience because everyone's like, oh, no, it's too early for draft stuff. And I'm like, I don't know.
Never too early.
It's never too early. It's never too early. But now some of those people are, finally starting to get on board. So, welcome to those of you who are, just getting into this discussion. There's a lot going on. It's a really interesting class.
Yeah, definitely. So we're talking NFL Combine today, doing a preview show. So we're gonna go position by position, kind of going through guys. We're gonna go each give a guy who might blow up the Combine, someone who has most to prove, might disappoint, but is a trust the tape guy, and a day 3 pick who we think will do well. We're gonna go position by position, and we're gonna use Jacob's position rankings. He ranked, if you haven't read it yet, go to WindyCityGridiron.com. He ranked the Bears' positional needs. So we're just gonna start at the top with the edge class, defensive end. So it's interesting, looking at the Combine invites, with edge and linebackers that always the NFL is not cut up to the modern football. So you got some guys who are linebackers with the edge. You have some people who are edges with the linebackers. I just went with guys who are rushing the passer. I don't care what their position they're listed at. Yeah. Guys who are going to be rushing the passer. So Jacob, we'll start with you since you're the expert here. Give us a guy who you think is going to blow up the Combine. The guy on whenever the Combine ends, everyone's going to be talking about. For the Bears or just in general?
So I think one guy who's really going to explode is Zach Harrison out of Ohio State. And he's a guy where I think he tends to fall into the background a little bit because, he's been on the radar for a couple of years now, and some flashier names like a Keeanu White or Lucas Van Ness, guys who are, rising up the board quickly. Both guys I think are going to have very good combines. You look at Zach Harrison, you're looking at someone who's, 6'6", weighed in around 270, and he's tested as low as running in the 4.4s. I mean, he's just an absolutely freak athlete. And I mean, that explosiveness shows up on tape. He consistently looks like the most athletic, at least defensive lineman that Ohio State had. Whether it's the most consistent, that's up for debate. But I think in an athletic setting, Harrison's really going to be able to shine. So, I think a lot of people are kind of considering him day 2. I think that he's a day 2 talent. I have him like fringe, like late round 2, early round 3. But I think that he's really going to shoot up for in the national perspective from once he gets his testing done, because I think he's going to put up incredible numbers.
Yeah. I mean, this is a very pro Zach Harrison podcast. So I think Luke and I are both on the same page there.
Like, what do you really think is keeping him out of first round consideration? Because especially if you're projecting that his highs, it's some of the best tape in the class for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's just that consistency. That's something that you don't see from a down perspective. There's sometimes where it doesn't really look like he has a great pass rushing plan in place. There are some instances where, maybe he's a little high in his pads and doesn't get as much anchor strength as you'd like out of a guy with his sheer size. I think he's certainly a work in progress from a technical perspective, but he's athletic, he's huge, and he plays hard. And that's a big thing. That's part of the reason why I think the Bears could be interested in him, because he has the length, the speed, and the motor. That's the 3 biggest things checking off, the Eberflus boxes or whatever. So I think he'll be
he's got he's the size wise. That's exactly what you want setting the edge, is 6'5", 280 kind of thing. 6'5", 275.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I think edge is a position where, as you mentioned, athleticism is so important. Like you can't be a subpar athlete on the edge rushing the passer, and he is obviously a great athlete. He might run in the 4.6s at 275, which is just absolutely insane. And I do think like sometimes you see him in mocks, he's like rankings of positional rankings, he's like sometimes like the 10th, 11th, 12th edge taken, which is to me is just not going to be the case once he tests at this combine. I think he's a perfect guy for the blow up the combine, move up the board. Yeah. So like I wouldn't shock me if he did sneak into the back end of the first round, even though I don't have a first round grade on him. It wouldn't shock me just because he has the size and the athleticism. And this combine is when that conversation might start happening.
There's a couple edges in this class that are going to blow this combine up.
Yeah.
Keon White, I think Keon White really jumped on people's radar as like a serious like top end edge in this class from like Jeremiah's big board, but like he's just like it's one of those moments where like when his tape is like there are moments when it looks like he's playing. You'd almost think he was playing in like a smaller division because he looks like a man amongst boys out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I also had Keon White in my kind of might blow up the combine. But curious your thoughts, Jacob. I don't know if I've seen you post much about Keon.
Yeah, I haven't talked a ton about him, honestly, because I think that he's kind of in that limbo from a Bears perspective where I think he's going to go much higher than having him in consideration for a round 2 pick, but not high enough to be in consideration for a round 1 pick. Yeah. I think Keon White's going to be a first rounder. I think that you're looking at a guy who's that big, who's that explosive, who plays hard with that much determination, that raw power. I mean, and it's another guy where, maybe he's not super polished in terms of pad level and weight distribution and stuff like that, but just the sheer explosiveness, I think he's going to test really well. I think he's going to jump well. He moves around well in space, and he's big enough you can kick inside in certain sub packages. But
he's like 290 pounds, man. He's
crazy. Yeah, so Keon White was number 20 on Bruce Feldman's freak list at the start of the year, so up there. A guy that I was gonna for my blow up the combine was a guy who's maybe in more play for the Bears if they trade down, in the bottom half of the top 10 is Myles Myrphy. He was number 3 on Bruce Feldman's freak list.
He is a freak.
Kind of similar, pretty similar to Zach Harrison, 6'5", 275, similar size. Similar, athleticism. I read that he was clocked in the 4.5s, and if he runs a 4.5 at 275, like he's going to be a top 10 pick, like no question.
Straight up.
So another guy to kind of look.
It'll actually be interesting to see what Will Anderson runs too, because like someone like a Micah Parsons kind of gives someone like a Will Anderson the green light, where it's like you can be a little undersized if you are that explosive and like that strong. But like Micah Parsons ran didn't he run like a 4.39 or like a 4.41? Like, is that something?
I think he got into the 4.3s, yeah.
Well, is that something we're going to see from Will Anderson, or is he going to be like a 4.5 guy with a good 10-yard split? You think?
Yeah, I'm not expecting like a 4.3 or a 4.4 from Anderson. Yeah. I think like mid 4.5s is probably what I'd expect. I mean, if it's even an early 4.6, I'd be like, okay, that's pretty solid.
Totally fine.
Yeah, like I'd be totally cool with that. I think the 10-yard split's going to be, very good.
Yeah.
And the tape shows that his first step's unbelievable. He's very athletic on tape. So I'm not too worried with testing unless he runs something like a 4.8 or something or less than that, which I'd be stunned with just watching how quick he is on the field.
Yeah. And his 3 cone is going to be good. His 3 cone is going to be good. So that's probably more important than a 40 time. But okay, so what about now? We talked a little bit about the guys who are going to blow it up. What about the guys who maybe have something to prove, either measurement-wise, athleticism-wise, a guy who, if they check those boxes, might move up, but something you really need to see from someone? What anyone that kind of jumps out at you there?
Yeah, so one guy that kind of stands out, and I've seen people project him inside, project him outside, and I realistically could see either one at the next level. But I'm going to go Adetomiwa Adebawore out of Northwestern. And just in general, I feel like he's a very interesting prospect because he's, heftier and more compact than your average edge rusher.
Yep. Very
long arms. He's shorter, but he's got long arms, and he's got the measurements where, you could kick him inside, you can kick him outside, kind of the hybrid in that sense. I want to see how he tests athletically. Because I watch him on tape, he's got a good first step, and like he times his jump off the ball pretty well, but I don't necessarily know if he's a great athlete in space.
Yeah.
And I don't think his long speed is all that fantastic. So I kind of want to see how he tests. And, if he ends up running, say like that's probably you're looking like, a 4.8 would be a good time for him. If he runs like a 5 flat, something like that, then that'd be a little bit concerning. And I'd be like, okay, what's going on here? How do we evaluate his fit at the next level?
Yeah, especially that he's like a little undersized too for that position if he's going to be inside.
Yeah, if he's going to be a D tackle, I mean, he's like what, like
285?
Yeah, like
285.
Yeah,
like he'll have to add a little bit more weight.
We were saying this yesterday that like because of Aaron Donald, like so many more guys in that 285 defensive tackle like space, like get recognition in that space where it's like Aaron Donald did it, but it's like man. At that size, like he probably projects more as like an edge. And I think at the Senior Bowl, he looked like his like in the one-on-ones at least his pass rush kit. Like if he had to play edge, I think he totally could.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I actually had him included with the D tackles just because I think that's probably where he ends up. But he definitely is a guy who you see kind of in both places. So he was number 30 on Bruce Feldman's freak list. The thing I don't in 40 time is important, but what I'm really the 10-yard split's gonna be big for him. What I really want to see is his 3-cone drill because if he seemed a little stiff to me. He wasn't really bendy. So I don't know if he's has a bad 3-cone time, then he's a D tackle all the way. If he can show that he has a good 3-cone score, maybe he can play more on the outside. But it was reported I saw in Bruce Feldman's article he ran a 6.9 second 3-cone, which is
I'd be surprised
really good.
One. Because I thought his short distance movement was actually like especially like when he would like line up inside more and like the way he'd get outside the guard and then back inside to like rip through quickly. I thought he was pretty good at it. I think he'll do a really good job.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I just need to rewatch him.
I was gonna say if we're we're probably moving into D tackle next, but one that we talked about yesterday is Brian Brezzi. Yeah. Because I was saying that like I don't know how much I love his tape, like the full body of it, and it would something that would be redeeming for him in my books is if he came and he was a freak at the combine. Mm-hmm. Because I think we said yesterday I had him rated as our 3rd defensive tackle, and I almost said I did it like dutifully because of how like highly rated I think everyone else puts him, but I wasn't in love with the tape. And if he came and he was a freak, then it's like, okay, maybe some of the stuff where he was just raw powering his way through would translate even to the NFL level. But he's one where it's like, if he's not a great athlete, man, I don't know. Like, I don't love his stock.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good evaluation on him. I have him as my 2nd D tackle, but it's very close between him and Siaki Ika. And you look for someone like a Keeanu Benton or a Kalijah Cansey who's up there. I think they have better tape than Brezzi does, but I think you're looking at just the sheer upside with him and what he can be. I agree. I think testing is going to be massive for him because he looks athletic on tape. So there are some times where I don't think he knows what to do with all of his quickness and his power. I don't think he has like a really good plan of attack as a pass rusher. And then he has the torn ACL to his name. So you're going to have to give him an MRI, see if that's all intact and working well. I think, the ceiling is really high with him, but I do have some concerns about how much he's going to be able to contribute right away. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I have him like around, like that late round 1 range where, I mean, obviously he's a freak athlete, unbelievable pedigree coming out of high school. Everyone knows, what he was able to do there. And it's just a matter of translating that upside into on-field production. I think that, again, the combine is going to be massive for him because if he doesn't test super well, then I could see him going round 2.
Yeah. And it's funny because I think for the last 2 months, we've seen him all over top 10 mock drafts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But over the last little bit, the guys like you said, like a Kalijah Cansey or like a Siaki Ika, they've really shot up the boards. And I think those are 2 guys that are going to look great at the combine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had Brezzi in my kind of most approved because like you guys said, if he's not an elite athlete, which I think he will be, but if he tests even just as a good or even above average athlete, you're not as interested in you because his evaluation is so built off of his athleticism. And then the injury concerns too, Jacob, as you mentioned, like that'll be big for him. We won't see that process, as fans, but going to in meeting with teams about their medical doctors and everything, that'll be big for him.
Yeah.
But back to edge class, we got a little sidetracked there. Anyone, Luke, did you have anyone like the most approved? Because the only guy I had was maybe the guy I kind of want to see is Lucas Van Ness. I know he's probably not in the Bears range because he's kind of like that Keeanu White, too late for the Bears to draft, but not high enough. But I think I liked his tape a lot. I thought he was a very straight line power rusher, though. I want to see what his agility drills look like, see if he, what his movement skills look like, kind of in comparison to the other guys at the position. But I think he's a guy who has a little bit to prove, to me at least, at the combine.
Yeah, I mean, my big one was Zach Harrison because I think he is going to blow it up, and I think he'll find a way up higher up than. I mean, I was hoping everybody would chill on him and we could get him in like the third or something, but I think he'll work his way into the second round with how he performs. There's a couple of guys that I want to know like the weights of. Like, is like a Will McDonald going to come in at like 230 or 245 or something like that? The same with like a BJ Ojolari. And obviously, I'm kind of similar to Brissy. Like, I would really need to be wowed by Tyree Wilson to have him like in some of the like the categories of the other guys. Because right now, for me, it feels like he's just such a project on like what he could be. It would need to be like he would need to be kind of in that freak category for me to like see all the hype around the top 10.
Yeah, Jacob, what are your thoughts on Tyree Wilson?
So Tyree, I think from just like a technical perspective, still a work in progress, but I feel encouraged by his growth from 2021 to 2022. I think that the way he uses his hands and the diversity of the moves he uses, could still improve, but it's gotten a lot better over the course of his collegiate career. And I think you're looking at obviously upside with him. He's massive. He's lengthy. He's got a powerful frame, very good first step. I think he's going to test very well. If he runs a 3-cone, I'm interested in seeing what he runs because I do think sometimes he could run a little high. But again, he fits that mold of insane length, very good athlete, plays hard. Does he know what he's doing all the time? I don't think so. I think he's probably going to have to be worked into like a rotational role starting out, but I think he's pretty scheme versatile. I have him as my edge rusher number 2 right now. And there are some guys who are, lower than him on my rankings who might have been a little bit more polished, but I think Wilson has, a very, very high ceiling. And if the team is able to, develop him correctly, then I think the ceiling's super high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably like the majority of the allure with Wilson is like straight, like from a straight like ability perspective, he might have the highest ceiling, other than maybe a Myles Myrphy in the class.
Yeah. All right. So what about someone who doesn't have a great combine, and this might not necessarily knock him down your board or anyone else's board. Maybe you're a guy who probably isn't going to do well, but you're like, I trust his tape and it's good. I don't care how he tests. Do you have any guy that kind of jumps out to you in that regard?
Off the top of my head, I'd have to think a little bit. I think I don't necessarily know if Habakkuk Baldonado out of Pittsburgh, I don't know if he's going to have a fantastic combine because I think he wins with, length a lot. He's, got solid hands and he plays hard, but I don't know necessarily if he's going to test super well. His acceleration's decent. I don't think he's the most mobile athlete out there. He's another guy who can play a little bit high every once in a while. We'll see. Again, I don't think everyone runs the 3-cone drill. So that's going to be able to determine, all right, who's going to do it? Do they think it's going to affect their stock if they run the 3-cone? Like, are people going to be scared off by it? Because Baldonado is a guy, I loved his 2021 tape, but he really didn't live up to my expectations of him in 2022. The production was a little bit down, but solid player. I'd take him in the middle rounds as like a rotational type of guy, but I don't think the combine is going to be the best showcase for him.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. I've only watched his 2022 and I wasn't that impressed. So maybe I need to go back and watch his 2021 to get a better idea of kind of who he actually is. The guy I had was Isaiah McGuire. I really like him. I don't think he's an elite athlete. I don't think he's going to be very bendy, but he wins more with length, as you said. So probably not a great showcase for him, but I'm going to trust my evaluation. And another guy, he's not going to be super high, but a mid-round edge who could have some potential there.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what about like a day three guy? Day three guy no one's talking about who you think is going to have a good day, maybe sneaks his way into that end of the day two.
Yeah, so I'm very interested in seeing what happens with Isaiah Land, and I don't think he's going to rise in the day two or anything just because the size is a bit concerning. But I look at a guy like Isaiah Land, and he played wherever teams needed to at the Senior Bowl, and obviously super productive at the FCS level. One of the top HBCU prospects in this class. Very quick twitched athlete, flexible off the edge, and he took several snaps as an off-ball linebacker at the Senior Bowl, both in practice and in the game, and he more than held his own. So I'm interested in seeing how he tests, because if you're projecting him as like a full-time edge, then it's very scheme dependent. If you move him around a little bit, you just need to take advantage of that athleticism and try and minimize the size deficiencies you have. But the tape doesn't lie, and in that he plays his ass off. He's super explosive. He just consistently dominated that level of competition. So I'm interested in seeing how he performs, how he tests when it's all said and done. I think he's going to put up some pretty good athletic numbers, even if from a size and length perspective, he's not your prototypical edge rusher by any means.
Sure. I have not watched a lot about him, so he's definitely going to be a guy I'll be paying attention to at the combine. A guy I'm kind of looking forward to, day three pick, who I think I don't know if he's going to do well, or I'm kind of just excited to see him, is Jose Ramirez from Eastern Michigan. His tape is really good, but is it a level of competition thing? I don't know. But I'm excited to kind of see how he tests.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see Nick Herbig, what is he? Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I think honestly, because it's like the translation to the NFL is interesting. I don't know because he played some off ball and he played some edge for him, and he honestly looked all right at both, but he's a little undersized to do any edge, and it's like I don't know if he's a full on true like off ball linebacker, but like he could, from an athlete perspective, he could go and blow up the combine and really like move himself from something like a day three to like maybe a day two.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing you bring up with Herbig. I have him as an off-ball linebacker. I see a lot of similarities between him and the way that Wisconsin used Zach Bond coming out a couple of years ago. And I think he could fit like sort of a similar role where, you have him in a Sam type of position. Sometimes you have him rush the passer. Sometimes you have him drop back. Jose Ramirez is a good shout. I don't know if he's going to be the type of guy to test super well. I think he's got a good first step, but I don't know exactly how flexible he is. But I just think his want to and his effort and his ability to, just naturally get into backfields by any means necessary is certainly interesting. And even if I don't think he's got the best bend, turning the corner, I do think, he's flexible enough because, you look at his pad level. I think that's one of the strengths of his game.
Definitely. Yeah, no, he's definitely a guy I'm excited to watch. Like I said, don't know if he's an elite athlete, but I think he'll hold his own. And I think the combine will be big for him just to prove that he wasn't just beating up on smaller school guys. He has the athleticism, hopefully, at least the required athleticism to make it at the NFL level.
Yeah.
All right, so D tackle. We talked a little bit about some of the D tackles, so we can kind of maybe go through this one a little bit quicker. But who's your blow up the combine guy? Is it Brissy? Or is it someone else?
Well, I mean, I think Jalen Carter, depending on what he chooses to do, I think he's going to, test incredibly well. Just super athletic. Another guy, I'm interested in seeing what happens with Kalijah Cansey, because I think if he tests super well, then some teams are going to be like, there's something here we can work with. And obviously I've seen people mock him, as high as like the top 10 or whatever. And, I don't know necessarily if that's going to be the case because, he doesn't have great length, not going to sugarcoat it. But He's a very good athlete. I think one of the best, most explosive defensive tackles you have in this class. And if he tests really well, I think that's going to really help out his stock and, really kind of mitigate some of the concerns they might have about his translation at the next level.
Yeah. I think I had him as my most approved guy, but he's definitely kind of in that blow of the combine too, because I had him the most approved only because of his size is obviously a big one. He's going to get measured, and that's huge. Yeah. But because of his size, he needs to blow up the combine and probably will because, like you said, he's undersized. He doesn't have the length you want, so he needs to be super athletic. Otherwise, there's no chance of him going to the first round. And he's looking at the second and third round. And if he doesn't blow up the combine, there's a little chance that he ever does anything successful in the pros. Frankly, given his size. So I had him in most approved, but I'm really excited to see him because I think he will probably blow up the combine and do pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Mozzie Smith from Michigan too. He's a freak.
Yeah. That was exactly what I was gonna say.
Sure. He'll probably do some rumbling and get some people excited. Honestly, his game's good enough too. He's so stout and so strong. He could sneak into the first round and just be like his floor is like he's too strong for his floor to be anything lower than like a really stout run defender. And if he can, improve some of that, I think he can get a little wild with his hand usage, but he's a guy that I think is going to look like a freak or like on the field in Indianapolis. He's going to have a good combine. He's going to raise his stock up.
Yeah, absolutely. He was number one on Bruce Feldman's freak list. I kind of read these stats last time, but I don't want to read them again just because they're ridiculous. He did 22 reps of 325 pounds, so not 225. Max bench press of 550 pounds, which is just outrageous. 33-inch vertical at 340 pounds. And this was reported, I doubt this is going to happen, but 6.95 three-cone at 337. That can't be right?
Yeah.
That's got to be some Michigan guy in the stop clock there. Like, but if he does do that, then he's going top 10 probably at that point.
And I'm really excited to see how Mozzie Smith's going to test because, again, I remember seeing him on the freaks list, and I'm like, all right, and the tape in 2021 was interesting. 22, I think he, came into his own. So, again, that's a guy I'm really excited to see where he ends up. I think that he's going to get drafted higher than wherever I have my grade on him, but I'm not going to hate on a team for doing that because I'm really, really intrigued by his game. And I think if he tests as well as a lot of people think, then I say go for it.
Yep.
How do you feel about his fit with the Bears as like a one tech nose tackle? Like if they did take him like the second round or something?
Yeah. So I'd be interested in that. I mean, I think it depends obviously what happens in free agency, which type of defensive tackle they bring in. But from a pure value perspective, I certainly think that Mozzie Smith will be solid, especially with the Bears. If you have a 3-tech in place, and you have a guy like Mozzie Smith, who's naturally that strong and has that quickness, then I think you're working with something here. And, he's a stouter guy. He's low to the ground. He's got a strong anchor. And there's some times where, we can use his hands a bit better. And I don't know exactly how much pass rushing ability he's going to bring right away. But, if you want like a run stuffer, then, him and Siaki Ika, I think, are the two best run, and Keeanu Benton I'd add in there too. Some of the best run defending defensive tackles in this class.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much exactly what we said about Mozzie Smith in our detailed preview. We kind of said
the note I had written down was absolutely stands dudes up.
That's fair. That's fair. Spot the line.
Honestly.
Yeah, man. He gets his hands inside and just straightens his arms out, and there's almost nothing you can do. He just keeps you off him.
Just so powerful. It's unbelievable.
It's crazy. All right, so then what about a most approved guy? Is that Brzee for you? Is that someone else?
Brzee's one of them. I'm going to go with Jacqueline Roy from LSU.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He's someone I think he's got a lot to prove because I wasn't impressed with his 2022 tape. And I think athleticism is a big part of his game. Like, the quickness off the ball, I think it's pretty solid. There are some times where he didn't look to be as athletic as I think he can be, at least on tape. And he uses his hands well, but I think pad level's a bit of a concern. I don't know about the flexibility in his lower half. And he's faded into the background a little bit. If he tests really well, then this will be his opportunity to, really propel himself back into kind of that day 2 conversation. But if not, if he runs like a 5.2 or, worse than that, then, he's someone I could see being one of those, wait, how did he go undrafted type of guys where, he entered this year, pretty highly touted, but, a down year on tape and not necessarily great numbers at the combine kind of holds him back.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one. I should have had him in my list for that, but I didn't. But I think that's a really good one because the D tackle position this year, we've talked about. We got Mozzie Smith, Keeanu, Benton, Siaki. Those are 3 nose tackles. They're kind of all up there. But really, after Carter and Brissy, there isn't really a solidified third 3 technique that I've known. And I think maybe Roy's not in that conversation, but with a big combine, maybe he could be. So I think that's kind of wide open for a bunch of guys, and Roy is one of them to kind of move up a little bit there. And then the guy. I mean, I had KNC and Brissy as my most approved. Kind of guys we've already talked about, so we don't have to go into a lot of detail there. Luke, did you have someone that you wanted to mention?
Someone. I mean, I think we've covered most of them, but one. I mentioned yesterday as a guy that just missed my top 5 is Ajomo from Texas. I think he's kind of cut from the same mold as like a Cansey or like even an Adebaware, like a little bit more of a smaller, undersized guy, but like really explosive slasher, like good athleticism, good motor. If he tests well, I think his stock could really jump up because his 2022 tape is like really, really good, especially considering like where he came from. He's trending in the right direction. If he's a freak, it makes the case so much easier,
Yeah, no, that's a really good shout. I'm interested in seeing how he tests because I think he's a good athlete. I think he looked the part on tape. Used his hands well, low to the ground. Seeing where he weighs too, because again, he's kind of in that tweener, And so
if he could come in at like 290, it would be such a chef's kiss.
Oh no, 100%.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I had him in my day 3 pick who might do well. So that, definitely a guy.
Yeah, him the day 3 man. That's Bears should be all over that.
I think so. I think he'd be like a day 3 pick right now, probably, right? Is that about right? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So, okay, then what about anyone that you think might not put up great numbers, but you like still?
Let's see. So as far as guys who might not test super well, Keandre Coburn out of Texas. I think he's the type of guy where, judging off of his style of play, he's not going to test super well. I mean, he's a bigger guy, listed at like 6'2", 348. Massive football man. And again, I don't think, because of that, he's carrying all that extra weight. I don't think he's going to run super well. I don't think his agility is going to be all that good. And
it doesn't really need to be.
Exactly. Yeah, because that's not the calling card of his game. He's a run stuffer. Just plug him right up the middle. He's the type of guy who can hold up blocks well. Just a mass.
Yeah, 100%.
He's gonna, be an effective.
He's a space eater.
Next level, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, I also had him with the same thing. He was my guy too in that category. And it does not matter how fast he runs a 40-yard dash. He will never run a 40-yard dash in the pros.
Yeah.
Like he will never run 40 yards. He might run 40 yards in an entire game, maybe. But I'm gonna just trust the tape on that one. He's a good player, and someone's gonna get a really. I don't know if he fits really what the Bears want. Probably not, but someone's gonna get a really good nose tackle, zero technique on day 3, and they're gonna. Yeah, he's gonna be an 8-year pro so someone's gonna get a good player there for sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking purely 3-4 true nose, but I agree. I think he'll stick around for a while.
Definitely. All right, so then what about a day 3 pick who you think people are gonna be talking about or might do well?
So, and let me just say first that I think it's a tragedy that Carl Brooks.
That's true.
Didn't get
invited. I know, man. If he went, dude. If he went, he would have put the whole league on notice.
Yeah. No, I'm still a little bit salty about that. So, as far as athletes that I like on day 3, I'm interested in seeing what Cameron Young out of Mississippi State does. He's one of those guys where, I think he wins a bit more with finesse at this point, and maybe not the most polished as a run defender and someone who can truly hold up blocks at the point of attack and eat up gaps. but I think he's quick off the ball. I think he's got some pretty quick and active hands. So he's someone I'm intrigued by. I don't think he's gotten a lot of attention, at least as much as he should be.
Okay.
Again, limited because of his struggles from time to time against the run. But I think he's someone that if you're looking for a late rounder to really take advantage of that, athletic ability, then Young's a guy that I have my eye on.
All right. Yeah, I think that's a good choice. The guy I had was Dante Stills from West Virginia. I don't know if he's going to be an elite athlete, but he did really well at the East-West Shrine game. And I thought when I was watching him, he just had a really good quick first step. So I don't know if he's going to have like a fast 40 or a lot of bench reps, but I think he's going to have a really good 10-yard split, maybe good 3-cone. I don't think he's ever going to get into that day 2 range. He's a solid day 3 guy, no matter pretty much how he tests. But this guy I'm excited to see more of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a good shout. Just in general, I think it's an intriguing defensive line class, and a guy like Stills, he's been on my radar for a while, but he's never truly been amazing. He's been solid quite some time. He's been solid for quite some time, and I think that's that could see him get drafted on day 3, just because of the extensive experience that he's had. But I'm intrigued with a lot of these defensive linemen. I think that it's going to be a pretty good class, especially in that day 2 range. I think that's really the sweet spot. You got a handful of guys who can come in and contribute right away.
Definitely. Yeah. All right, moving on to offensive tackle. So obviously, the Bears definitely need a right tackle. It sounds like they might be happy with Braxton Jones, but they definitely need a right tackle. So they'll be scouting these guys heavily. Going through this kind of process before this, for putting my notes together, I thought this was a pretty easy one with all of these but it also made me realize how much I do not like this offensive tackle class whatsoever. But I'm curious who you have I think I'll probably know who you have as who's going to blow up the combine, but let's hear it from you.
Yeah, so there are a couple of guys I can look at. Honestly, from an athleticism perspective, I'm really interested in what Broderick Jones is going to do from Georgia.
Yep.
I think he's one of, if not the best pure athletes at offensive tackle in this class. And I think he complements that well with, really good power too. He's not the biggest guy out there, but, he plays tough. He's got a bit of a mean streak to him. But just the movement, the lateral agility that you see in pass pro, the acceleration you see when he climbs to the second level. I mean, it's just no fair, really. So he's a guy I'm really looking forward to watching. I don't think he's a top 10 pick, but top 20, I think, is definitely realistic for him. He's someone I think can, realistically just slide him in at, probably a left tackle, I think, at the next level, but you could play him right tackle. And I think he'd be able to hold his own there too.
Yep.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about Broderick Jones. He's another guy who I had him as the might blow up the combine too. And I think he's a guy who needs to blow up the combine because so much of his game is predicated on athleticism and movement skills. So he's another guy who he needs to test as an elite athlete. If he tests as a good athlete, it won't be good enough because his tape is kind of a mess at sometimes, but he moves really well. So I think this is kind of his time to shine. Same thing with Paris Johnson. I feel like too, another guy, this is his time to shine. A guy who's just a really good athlete who's going to do well. So I think those are the top 2 guys in the class pretty much by any means, unless you have Peter Skoronski as an offensive tackle, which, some people do. But I think those 2 guys are really going to kind of blow up the combine as they should.
I think, to be honest, it'll be interesting. The combine for Skoronski will be interesting to get the exact arm measurements because I know a lot of people are kind of fixating on that, and as they should. It's a pretty stark divide between those that do and those that don't. So he might be kicking into guard, but I think a lot of people fell in love with. Low key, I've been a truther, but I think a lot of people fell in love with DeJuan Jones at the Senior Bowl, and I think a lot more are gonna he's just a freak. His build is so interesting because he's 340 pounds, 350 pounds or so, but he's 6'8", and it's not that he looks like he's just this massive individual. He actually looks kind of slim and athletic, especially in his bottom half. So I think he really could go in and do some impressive stuff for his size at the combine.
Yeah, no, I'm interested in seeing how he performs because, again, in terms of overall offensive tackles, I don't think DeJuan Jones is going to test super well, but for a guy his size, I think he's going to be, in a higher percentage. So, and that's something you see with him on tape, like for an offensive tackle. And that's, part of a reason I don't think the Bears are really going to target him, because overall for an offensive tackle, he's not super athletic, but you're looking for, a team, say like the Ravens or something, I think are always a good example. Where, you got like, well, we'll see now what they do with the new offense, but where they drafted a guy like Daniel Falele, and I think DeJuan Jones has better tape than Falele did. Just a massive individual who's, athletic for his size. And I think that's a huge thing. And you have that length, you have the sheer power. So we'll see how we test, but I think that DeJuan Jones, I think he's going to go higher than a decent amount of people expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for sure second round.
Yeah, at least, maybe back end.
I could see round 1 with him
for sure. I mean, he'll like you said, he will go in there and more than likely be the heaviest player, except maybe some D tackles, but definitely the heaviest offensive player, like at the combine. And he's not likely to be the guy running a 5.3. He'll probably just based on the way he looks like he moves, he'll probably have some pretty impressive times at that size. And I wouldn't be surprised if he squeezes his way into the first round. Playing at Ohio State too helps. You got a lot of good tape. You get some really quality prospects.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I had him in my trust the tape guy, because not that I think he's going to be, like you said, he's going to be overall and the off tackles maybe not high, but his RAS score will be high given his weight. But I also don't really care what his athletic testing is, because he wins because he's just bigger than everyone. And I think you mentioned. What's the guy? I never get his name right. Falele. Yeah. I think he's also a better athlete than Falele was too. I don't think he's on like that type of bad athlete, but I think he's just going to be like average. But I don't really care, because the tape speaks for itself there. But I do want to go back to Peter Skoronski a little bit, because Luke mentioned the arm length. That's obviously going to be a huge thing. I have him as my most approved, and it's just basically because of his arm length. I know he's a good athlete. I don't need to see that. I just want to know how long his arms are. Curious where you have him. Do you have him as a tackle? Do you have him as a guard? Do you have him as a center? Just your overall thoughts on Skoronski?
So I've been kind of going back and forth. As of right now, I have him as a tackle, but like 2 weeks ago, I had him as a guard, and that, my answer to that might change anytime soon. So again, I think the arm length is going to be massive for him, even if it's like adequate, like maybe a little bit below average, but if it's still passable, then I think I'm still going to keep him at tackle. But I don't know. Either way, I just look at a guy whose tape is fantastic. He's my top overall offensive lineman in this class. So wherever he ends up, he's going to be my top guy. It's just a matter of, are his arms, at least decently long enough to be able to stay at tackle at the next level, which we've seen with Rashawn Slater. When he's been healthy, he's been one of the best young offensive linemen in the league. And, his arms aren't necessarily super long. And I know that's the default comparison, because, Northwestern offensive lineman who, has those arm length concerns, but I do see similarities there. Both athletic, both pretty technically sound, both intelligent players. So I'm interested in seeing what he measures. He'd be the guy I think has the most approve of any offensive tackle in this class as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I have him as a guard right now. I've pretty much had him as a guard for a while, but it's interesting because I think he's sub 300 pounds too. So you don't see a lot of sub like 295 pound guards. So I'm not sure. Like, I think if you move him inside, you almost want to move him to center because of his way. So that's tricky. But I think even though I think he is on the inside in the NFL level, if the Bears did draft him, which seems unlikely at this point, but if they did draft him, I would give him every chance to stick a tackle before making that decision. I wouldn't just move him in automatically.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the length will be big for him. Another guy I had in like the most approved was Anton Harrison, because he's a guy I liked a lot early on in the process. I've soured on him a little bit, but I still like him. I think he's another guy whose game is predicated on athleticism. His functional strength is the big question with him. So how many bench reps is he going to put up? Is he a great athlete, or is he just a good athlete? I don't know. So I think if he comes to the combine, puts up a good bench press number, and does well athletically, I think he can kind of get back into that first round conversation. Because right now it seems like he's in that second round.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I have a round 2 on Harrison right now, and I definitely agree. I think athleticism is his calling card. So if he doesn't test super well there, then that'll be a little bit of a concern for me. But, watching him on film, I absolutely agree. Functional strength can improve. Blocking on the move, I think he's very good at. One of the more coordinated and just overall explosive tackles in this class. So yeah, I mean, I'm interested in seeing how he tests.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I think. I've seen some people have Anton Harrison as their like tackle number 1, and I think that's probably just basically based on projection. But his tape is really nice, like you said. Like I think getting him out on the move, he keeps people away like really well. His balance is good. If he has a good combine, I'd be surprised if he slips out of the first round.
Yeah, he's pretty scheme dependent. Is probably the biggest thing with him. Like the Ravens aren't going to draft an Anton Harrison. Like the Bears might. Like he'd fit the Bears scheme, but he's not going to fit everyone. So it's kind of like who do you want? Like people who have DeJuan Jones on their big board won't have Anton Harrison and vice versa. So it's kind of and they're kind of going in that same range. So it's kind of just whatever scheme you run there. Okay, we kind of went. Do you have a guy? I think DeJuan Jones was like that. Trust the tape guy. We kind of talked about him. So do you have like a day 3 pick you think is going to do well? I struggled with this one at offensive tackle.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of intrigued by a handful of these guys. If I'm looking for, see, that's a tough one. I got to think about that a little bit. But offensive tackles, I mean, can I cheat and go with the guy who played? Okay, so he played tackle in college. I project him best at guard. But Mark Evans from Arkansas Pine Bluff, he's a guy that, one of the top small school guys in this class. I think just super athletic. I know scout the player, not the helmet, but, coming from the same school as Teron Armstead, I see, a handful of similarities from an athleticism perspective. I think Mark Evans is going to test in that similar range. And, Armstead tore up the combine. And I watched him against Oklahoma State. With a small school prospect, you have a game against Power 5 competition. Of course I'm going to watch it. So Evans, more than held his own. I don't think I'm interested in seeing what he weighs. Not the most lengthy prospect out there. I think I have him as a guard, and I think other people will too. But he's someone I'm a very big fan of, and it depends on what kind of scheme he ends up in, but. For a team like the Bears, I think he'd be a very good fit.
Yeah, another guy that played tackle but probably will play guard that I think could really start to turn some heads with a good combine is Cody Mock. He had a really good Senior Bowl, and I think he saw a lot of work on the inside of the Senior Bowl that we didn't see a lot of when he was at NDSU, which I think will help him just having that versatility. And if he has a good combine too, man, I think he made some waves at the Senior Bowl and could really start to stir some stuff up with a good combine. I'm excited too. Like apparently the Bears have been talking to him. I think he'd be a good fit.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And, I know like the arm length, is probably going to kick him inside. And, we saw at the Senior Bowl, there's a little bit of, transitional period kicking outside to inside, but I think it's going to work out well for him. He's got the tenacity, the athleticism. He'd be a great fit for the Bears. I'm pulling for that, and say like round 2, I'd be ecstatic with that pick.
100%.
Yeah,
I think they said he even got some work at center when he was at the. That's the kind of guy you want on your team.
Yeah, I mean, both those guys you mentioned are small school guys. These things are always big for small school guys because you can watch both those guys. I haven't watched Mark Evans, but I have watched Cody Mock, and he does look athletic, but is he super athletic, or are the guys he's going against not athletic? So it's good to get a good baseline against all these other guys as well. So I think the combine will be big for both of those guys. Let's move on to the interior. So I like this interior offensive line class. I put out like a tweet the other day where I graded each position group, and I put the interior offensive line at B+, and everyone told me I was way, way too high, but I like this interior offensive line class. But curious, Jacob, do you have a guy who you're really watching might blow it up? Maybe it's Cody Mock, maybe it's Mark Evans, maybe it's someone else.
Yeah, so I'd say Cody Mock. I'm going to go in a different direction just for, the sake of, mixing it up.
Sure.
I think Joe Tippman, the center out of Wisconsin. I'm interested in seeing how he tests because, I watch him. He's been a guy that more and more I watch him. I think I started watching him around like December or something. So like later in the year, but very good athlete. I think that's a big thing that sticks out with him when I watch him on tape. He's coordinated. He moves around very well. His acceleration's impressive. He has very good control over his movement. And I think that's such a big thing, especially, in an offense that, utilizes a good amount of outside zone and probably will use more as the Bears continue to shape the offensive line in the image that they want. And Tippman, I think, is a guy who fits that bill, very coordinated, mobile, fluid, however many buzzwords you want to use for it. I think he fits that bill really well. So I'm going to be very interested in seeing what he can do at the combine because there's some flashes on tape that I think that from a long-term perspective could really sell some teams on him as early as round 2.
Yeah, he was also my blow up the combine guy. I've liked him for a while. Just the way he moves, everything you said. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. Everything you said was just spot on. Like he's gonna go to this combine. He's going to do well. Another thing, like he's going to do well, and he's also 6'6", 320 pounds. You don't see a lot of centers with that size. Yeah, so he's not only going to test really well, but he's going to do it at a bigger size than the guys surrounding him. He was number 28 on Bruce Feldman's freak list at the start of the year. 635-pound squat, 455-pound bench. These numbers take them with a grain of salt because these are all coming from the teams, but he did have a 1.65 10-yard split, which would have been the fastest of any offensive lineman last year. Maybe he doesn't get to that number, but it's going to be a good number. So really excited to see him. And I do think he gets into that like second round range, probably. Maybe potentially even the first center off the board. I know I like John Michael Schmitz better. He's my 1, Tippman's my 2. But I think if he shows off that athleticism and maybe John Michael Schmitz doesn't, the NFL always overdrafts athleticism. So I think that's a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, on that topic too, me and you were talking before the show, Steve. I think there's a chance that Luke Weipler from Ohio State has a really, really nice combine. And I think that'll probably help him build some steam heading into the draft because I think he's kind of getting slept on right now. I have him at 4. We did this. We already did our interior guard rankings, but I had him at 4, and I think that's probably where I'll have him. I'd be fine if the Bears could get him with like a 3rd round pick or something, but I think he'll have a good. I think he'll have a good combine, which would probably put him into that 3rd round range.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's totally fair. I'm torn between Weipler and Tippman for my second center in this class. I think they're both neck and neck. Both guys I take on day 2. I think Weipler, really showed up against Jalen Carter in that semifinal game. When I went back to go watch Jalen Carter, because I did like a film review of those, the playoff games, because there's been a lot of concern about that. I went back and watched, that game, and Weipler, really held his own. And I think that's part of the reason why that narrative is, was a thing, is a thing, whatever. And again, OSU game plan very well to double team and try and limit his impact. But Weipler and Tippman are both the guys that I think are going to contribute right away. Schmitz is my top center, but also a big fan of those guys too.
Yep,
definitely. Yeah, I think to me, John Michael Schmitz is number 1, but Tippman, Weipler, a couple other guys kind of in that mix, but I think it is probably Tippman and Weipler as 2, 3, however, whatever order you have them in. All right, so what about most improved then? Guy you think can kind of shoot up boards if he does well?
Yeah, so most improved, I'm going to go with someone whose tape got really good this year, but I want to see how he tests is Osiris Torrance from Florida. Mm-hmm. And I have him as my top guard and my number 2 overall interior guy behind Schmitz. I want to see how he tests because I think that Torrance, the tape is really good. He's just a powerful guy. He's a bigger guard, wins a lot with power and tenacity. So there's a lot to like with his game there. And once he lands his strikes accordingly, the grip strength is tremendous. But I didn't see great athleticism on tape, at least, for the guard position. And being a bigger guy, I think that's never going to be the calling card of his game. But if he can test even, at an adequate level, then I think, you're looking at a guy who could go round 1. I just think that he's not a great fit in every scheme right now, which I think could see him fall into round 2. Kind of scheme dependent, but if he can, kind of silence some of those athleticism concerns, then I definitely see a round 1 type player if he's able to, even test decently, because
he's a big boy.
It's impressive. Yeah.
He's another one. He's another one of those guys that actually had a really good game against Carter. Really held his own.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, he's another guy in that kind of trust the tape section. Like he's good. Don't overthink it if he has a not great combine. I don't think he's unathletic, but he's probably not gonna really blow it up.
Yeah.
Another guy kind of, for me at least, in that trust the tape thing, and I know people are not really thrilled about his tape, but I still like him. It's Olusegun Olutimi from Michigan. I like him as a center. And he's just a guy who has a lot of experience. He's probably not a great athlete, but I'm still going to kind of trust the tape and put him in that tier after Whitebler, Tippman, in that center range. So I think he's a trust the tape guy. Another guy I want to talk about was, and I think it was reported today that the Bears met with him, even though the Bears are probably meeting with everyone, but there's still reports out there about them meeting with individual guys. But it's Steve Avila from TCU. I didn't see a great athlete on tape. I didn't see a bad athlete, but I didn't see a great one. I know, Jacob, you had I forget what the stat was, but you tweeted at me the other day. I can't remember. It was what was it again?
It was looking back at the the Senior Bowl, they tracked acceleration and all the speed and stuff, and he had the best acceleration of any offensive lineman at the Senior Bowl, which that surprised me. I'm gonna be honest.
Mm-hmm. Same.
That's big for him.
Yeah. So I think
another one that's a big fella.
Oh no.
Yeah, because his tape's good. So if he can come out and test as an above average athlete, then that's gonna be huge for him. So it will be definitely a guy to be on the lookout there. It also makes him more scheme versatile, because to me is maybe he could fit the Bears scheme, but probably he'll have more appeal to other people. But if he tests as good as he might, then he gets back into kind of everyone's conversation and is on 32 teams boards instead of only 20 or whatever it is.
I think he also played some center too. I think he's got a little bit of versatility too, which adds to his case.
Yeah,
that'll help him for sure.
He started as a center at TCU, and then the guy they brought in, Alon Ali, they brought him in from SMU, I think it was. Yeah,
SMU.
So they kicked him over to guard, and obviously the
rest is history. Yeah,
absolutely.
I didn't have him on my list, but I actually do like Ali a little bit as kind of a late round guy. He's not bad.
Yeah, no, definitely.
What about a day 3 pick that you're excited to see?
Day 3 pick. So I'm not going to cheat and say Mark Evans again, because I used him for my tackle.
Why not?
I'm just going all in on the Mark Evans hype train.
Mark Evans again.
Mark Evans, let's go. I think Alex Forsythe from Oregon is someone that I enjoyed watching on tape. I think he played center, and he's a good athlete. He moves around well. One of the more coordinated guys who can roll his hips through contact to seal off running lanes. And I think it's pretty clear when you watch guys on tape who has control over their body once they engage in contact and who doesn't. And Forsythe's a guy I think knows how to use his body well. Even if the pad level isn't all the way there, I think that the way that he moves is encouraging enough that I think he could develop there. And not the most powerful guy in this class, maybe not the nastiest, but just a solid, displacer where he's not going to have too many highlight caliber blocks at the next level, but I think he'll do his job. And, those type of players have a role at the next level. So I'm interested in seeing how he tests when it's all said and done and how he performs.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, when the tweets that get the engagement are the tweets of some guy, pancaking a guy, and that's probably not Alex Forsythe, but you're so right. He's just always in the right place, always, good balance, good athleticism, just always executing his blocks, even if it's not highlight reel type plays. But yeah, no, I think that's a good one. I also think he'll test pretty well. Other guys two guys I had that I actually really like their tape on the interior is Henry Bainavalu from Washington. I think he might test better than people think, and Braden Daniels from Utah. He played tackle, but I think he's going to be either a guard, maybe a center in the NFL. So two guys I'm excited to watch there.
I think Daniels, that's a really good shout too, because I feel like he's kind of flown under the radar. I have him kicking inside as well. I like his translation, and like an outside zone type of offense, just get him on the move and take advantage of that. Just the agility, I think, is really impressive.
Yeah, he fires out of his stance so quick and so low. Like, I really liked him.
No, for sure.
Luke, do you got a guy?
No, not really. I think like we covered it for the most part. I'm surprised that none of us said Andrew Voorhees. I think I'm maybe a little higher on him than most. I don't think he needs to do much at the combine though. His tape, he's a guy that the tape kind of speaks for himself. Before we move off offensive line though, I will say I'm like surprised that Blake Freeland. I feel like he had a lot of steam coming into the year, and I honestly thought he had a good year, and I feel like he's cooled off a little. He's a guy that I think if he tests really, really good, he could put himself back into that like third or second round conversation, because right now he's like, I think people are thinking he's gonna be like a fourth, fifth round pick, and like I guess there are probably some concerns about how big he is. He's pretty tall, but he's just barely 300 pounds, and those are some things he could probably silence at the combine. But I think he's got a lot to lose or gain going.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think Freeland in the little bit that I was down in Mobile didn't live up to my expectations. I think he didn't look as mobile or athletic as I was expecting. So I'm interested in seeing how he tests, because the length is there. Watching him on tape, he moves a lot better than he has any right to for a guy who's like 6'7", 6'8".
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I definitely agree. I think there's a lot on the line for him at the combine. So there's a lot of room for error one way or another.
Yeah, I actually didn't really like his tape much, but I did see that he's a guy who moves well, and so it's surprising that you weren't impressed with him moving at the Senior Bowl. But because I thought he would be. That's kind of his calling card, a guy who just moves really well at his size. So yeah, definitely another guy to watch. Good shout there. So we're gonna skip linebacker. I know we're about an hour now. But I do want to touch on wide receivers, because everyone's obviously always wide receivers in the combine. That's really what people are here to see. So we'll finish up with wide receivers then. So give me a guy who you think is going to blow up. I think there's a lot of different options here.
Yeah, there are a lot of options. I'm going to go with – I think I'll go just Jalen Hyatt. I think that's a safe bet.
Yeah, he's going to run so fast.
Yeah, he's going to have an absolutely insane time in this 40, if he chooses to run, which I'm assuming he will. Because why wouldn't you? At his speed's his calling card. I think, I'm expecting 4.3s from him. If he gets into the 4.2s, then, that's going to be phenomenal for him. You're talking top 15 lock at that point, at least in my mind, because, watching him on tape, sure, he's a little bit of I keep saying he's a one-trick pony, but his one trick is the most valuable one that teams fall in love with for projection at the next level. So I'm excited to see how he performs. I think, the combine is great for like those type of speed receivers, kind of like the Senior Bowl is. It's a lot of moving in space. And like the, bigger physical guys don't necessarily have the advantage of, having a jump ball against a defensive back all the time there. So I think Hyatt's going to be a guy who's going to test really well. And I think he's got a chance to, improve his stock even more.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. If he runs, like you said, if he runs a 4.2 top 15 lock, he's worst case he's going to run in the 4.3s, and I think that's a top 30 lock.
And the thing that's nice about
I don't see him getting out of the first.
He's not like a Tutu Atwell. Like he's a really nice football player. He's got soft hands, he's got good body control. If he runs a 4.2, he's full freak.
Yeah, because he's got decent size. Like he's not huge, but he's probably around 6 foot, 185, 190 pounds, something like that. So
yeah. I think Tyler Scott is going to put his name on the map. I think he's like legit an Olympian, but man, anytime he touched the ball, it was like if you took a bad angle, he might go.
Yeah,
I think he'll be at least a 4.3 guy. I think.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he's in the 4.2s as well. Not sure if he gets into the first round even with a 4.2, but I think that would put him easily in the second round. Yeah, he was number 54 on Bruce Feldman's freak list. He did run a 4.29 40. Again, who knows if that's the team calculator.
Yeah.
But he's at least a 4.3. The other thing I saw about him, he was listed like 5'10", 185 pounds, and he squatted 600 pounds, and that can't be right. Like, right? That's like 3 times his body.
Steph Curry squats a psychotic amount of weight, and he's
I don't know.
A 6'3" guy.
I don't know if I could squat Tyler Scott. Like, that's crazy. Anyway, the other guy I had was Quentin Johnston. Bigger receiver, but he's gonna jump. He's gonna run a 4.4. He's gonna have a 45-inch vertical leap, and so he's gonna be. This is a good showcase for him because his tape is a little up and down, but he's a freak athlete, so he's gonna test like a freak athlete. So, most approved.
The elephant in the room is absolutely Jackson Smith and Njigba.
Yep, I was just gonna get that with the most.
Might be the one event at the combine that has the most eyes on it. It's his 40-yard dash time.
Yeah,
assuming he runs it.
Yeah, I mean, and like, to some extent, if I was like in his camp, I'd be like, dude, you don't need to run this because it's almost like if you open Pandora's box and let them know how fast you are, then someone could go, oh shit, he only runs a 4.65. But if you never run it, it's like you can only watch the tape, and his tape is incredible.
Yeah,
because you probably will like. Is there a number that would really scare you guys for him?
Jacob,
yeah, no, I'd say, around like a 4.65 would, scare me off. Although also I don't think he's going to run that. I think he's going to run in the 4.5s. That's just me. I think his game speed is, going to be better than his track speed. And if he runs in the 4.5s, then I'm going to feel confident, saying, all right, this guy, because he's my wide receiver 1 right now, and you're just judging off the tape. Yeah. And he's, tape's fantastic with him. He's a very good player. Yeah.
It's so funny, man. There's been so much fluctuation on that. I feel like from everybody. And like literally last week, I think I made a tweet about it. I was like, I'm just done like talking myself out of him. He's the best receiver in the class.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%.
Yeah, I had him in my most approve and also trust the tape category. He was in both because I'm gonna, the 40 times is gonna be big if he runs it. I do think he's gonna run into the 4.5s, Jacob, like what you said. Like if he runs to the 4.6, then maybe that's a different conversation. But he'll probably run in the 4.5s. If he gets into like even a 4.48, then he's a top 15 lock. Like that would be amazing for him. But even if he runs a 4.52, 4.55, something like that, like he's still going to be a first rounder probably. I know there are reports of him dropping in the second round. Maybe I don't think it's not a non-0% chance, but I feel like it's a small.
That would be psycho.
That he does that.
I mean, to be fair too, there's such a laundry list of great receivers in the last 10 years that have run 4.5s or worse. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown just did it. Devontae Adams did it. Stephon Diggs did it. Allen Robinson did it. Like, there's just so much. Like, you don't need. I mean, you need to be able to run fast, but like Anquan Bolden ran something psycho, like a 4.77 or something.
But if we're just talking about draft position, I think we all like Jackson Smith and Njigba, but a lot of the guys you just mentioned didn't go in the first round because of their speed. So we're just talking in terms of what the NFL likes and does. I think we all like him as a player, but if he runs a 4.55, people are going to draft Jalen Hyde over him. Jalen Hyde's not a better wide receiver than Jackson Smith and Njigba by any means. So it's just kind of the nature of the beast with the NFL. All right. We'll finish up here. And just a day 3 guy who you like. There was a good amount here. Wide receiver, there's always a ton of guys.
I mean, building off the Senior Bowl performance, if Jayden Reed goes in and has himself an awesome combine, then he could. I mean, he's already probably moved himself up from like 7th and 6th round into the 5th and 4th round, and he could continue on that if he has a great combine.
Yeah, definitely. I think he might even already be in that 3rd round range. But if he's not a good combine, would he get him there probably? Jacob, do you have anyone?
Jayden. Yeah, I mean, I think Jayden Reed, he's got a lot of opportunities to, continue to improve his stock. I think he looked really good at the Senior Bowl. I think he's going to run pretty well. Again, one of those situations where, Michigan State didn't have the most like the best passing attack, and it wasn't the most consistent getting the receivers the ball like accurately. So I think Reed's the type of guy where it's like, all right, you keep in mind the circumstances. This is a guy that I think can outdo his collegiate production at the next level. Is he going to be like a wide receiver one? I don't think so, but I think he's a good complementary type of guy. I think he can play field side. He can play out of the slot. So I'm interested in seeing what he runs, because if he can run in like the 4.3s, then I think that'd be huge.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, a day 3 guy I think might do well is I haven't watched a bunch of them, but Michael Jefferson from Louisiana. Lafayette. I just saw like the other day that he was the fastest player clocked at the Shrine Bowl by GPS, and he's like 6'3", 205 pounds, something like that. So if he's going to be 6'3" and be one of the fastest players there, that's going to definitely rocket him up boards, even if his tape might not really support that. But
man, it might even be worth too. Like I think a guy that has a lot of money to be made is a Tank Dell. Like if he goes in and moves as fast and looks as he looks, like he could really, because I think he kind of put some people on notice if he, at the Senior Bowl, just by the eye test, he just moved different from other people, and that's going to happen when you weigh 170 pounds. So it'll be important for him to, 1, go and prove that he was moving as fast as it all looked like he was, and 2, if he came in at 175 as opposed to 165, it would make a big difference in a lot of people's boards.
Yeah, and there's one guy I kind of want to point out real quick is Demario Douglas from Liberty. He's someone that I watched it. He's another undersized receiver, listed at like 5'8", 165, something like that. So a small guy, but I think one of the most explosive athletes in this class. Yeah. Just fantastic agility. He's got a significant just spring in his step. Like he changes direction on a dime. And he's just so fast. So I'm really interested in seeing how he tests at the combine, because I think he's a guy you're looking at, pushing for one of the fastest 40 times for a receiver.
Yeah. Actually, to that point, we'd probably be remiss to not mention dudes like Zay Flowers and guys like Josh Downs that are all kind of in that mold. Smaller, really, really explosive, good short distance quickness, and can run away from you. All those guys, like, not to put like too much pressure on the situation, but those are guys that could really, really hurt their draft stock by running a 4.46. Like those are guys you're kind of all expecting to see in the 4.3s or low 4.4s, and those are guys that with a 4.2 or a low 4.3 can shoot themselves up the board, but can also stand to lose a lot if they don't show up as fast as we think they are.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like Zay Flowers and Josh Downs, like both of them are very similar players. They're in the same range. One of them could really separate themselves, just like you said. So maybe not they're not getting up into the next tier, but they would separate themselves from the tier they're in. The other guys I kind of have like that too are Cedric Tillman and A.T. Perry. Similar guys, similar size, similar play styles. If one of them has a better combine, it might kind of separate them, because depending on who you ask, one guy might have one guy over the other. But if one of them has a good combine, could kind of separate themselves in the pack there.
Yeah, and to that point, a guy I think who's in a sort of similar situation is Grant DuBose from Charlotte. He's someone, he got a late Senior Bowl invitation, and I think he's just a very good route runner, and he's very intelligent. Like he knows what he's doing. He attacks leverage points, very well in man coverage. Sits in soft spots and zone well, but he's not the best athlete out there. Like he's not super explosive. He doesn't have great deep speed. He's not like great as a yak guy. So I'm interested in seeing how he tests. I don't think he's gonna wow anyone with his 40 time, but even if he's just decent for a receiver, I think that'll go a long way, because just watching his tape, it's clear that he dominated that level of competition that he faced. So very interested in seeing what ends up with him, because I think he's a good football player.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I've just watched one of his games last week, and I only watched one, but I was pleasantly surprised on what I saw. So definitely a guy to keep an eye on who might kind of separate himself here at this combine. So yeah, definitely. Anyone else you guys want to mention before we sign off on here? I know we went a little bit over.
I mean, those are really just the Bears heavy positions that were worth reviewing. There's a million guys that stand to make money here, but I'd say that's probably it for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to get to running back, linebacker, cornerback, but just didn't have enough time. Maybe another show or something like that. Jacob, thanks for coming on, man. We really appreciate it. This was awesome. Hopefully we can get you on again before the draft or maybe even after the draft to talk about the class. Thanks everyone for listening. Make sure to like, subscribe, make sure to follow Jacob on Twitter. Make sure to read his When You See the Gridiron and stuff, putting out great stuff there. So thanks everyone. And until next time, bear down.
Cool. All right, boys.